Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today with this video of Study the Bible with me. My name's Michael and my lovely wife Sharon is running the camera today.
Hey, YouTube friends. It is a lovely day. We're sitting outside. The winds are blowing, sunshine, and it is just really nice.
It's a beautiful day and you'll hear the birds chirping, you might hear the rooster, and you may even hear our cat sitting in the window meowing.
Yeah, he does meow, and he's in the window, and we hear him.
All right, today we're going to go to the first Psalm. And the book of Psalms is unique in the Bible because it's not chapters, they're Psalms. It's a songbook. So it's like saying the first song, the second song. We're going to go to the first one.
Well, let me say something about Psalms, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
I tell the ladies at the jail, I tell them that Psalms is the only book where the rest of the Bible is God is pouring words into us. But in the Psalms, it's like us pouring out to God through prayer.
Right.
And prayer and sorrow and grief, if you will.
Yeah. There's a song for every occasion in the Psalms. So the first Psalm, it's only a few verses. I'll read it. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. Now, the first thing we can see in this first Psalm, in verse 1, is a progression. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful.
Well, you know what I get out of that? Be careful who you're keeping company with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But the progression is he's walking. Something catches his interest, so he stops and he stands. And it gets his interest to the point that he pulls up a chair and sits down, and he stays in that confused and muddled state that is not good. Verse 2, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Now, when David wrote this, he didn't have a New Testament. In fact, he didn't have half of the Old Testament at this point. What he had was the books of Moses, Chronicles, part of the Chronicles he knew because he was the second king. There really wasn't much for him to meditate on, but he drove himself into it. He dived into it, and he meditated day and night, and he took delight in it. Verse 3, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. Now that reminds me, and Sharon, you'll get a connection to this. The trees in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Louisiana is full of a lot of water. There's a lot of rivers and streams and bayous, and those trees get a lot of water to drink.
Yeah, and I'm from Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. But also here, notice the word planted. Now, I planted a tree one time when we were still up in Chicago years ago, and the tree's still standing. But when you go to plant a tree, you just don't start digging a hole and throw it in there. You look around, you see what's the best place for it. Make sure that it'll have plenty of sunlight, plenty of water. It's a good area for that type of tree. Some trees take a certain kind of soil. Some trees take another kind of soil.
And they take another kind of climate too, right?
Absolutely. But the fact is it's planted. That means somebody was in charge and placed it there specifically. So where you find yourself, that's where God has planted you, unless you've wandered away. You need to find where God has planted you, where He wants to plant you. And what will happen? You'll be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, bring forth his fruit in his season. His leaf will not wither or fade, and whatsoever you doeth shall prosper. Now there we see, when the Lord plants you someplace, let events, circumstances, and so on take their time. Don't rush it, because I've planted many a thing, and I can't make that plant grow any faster. Some people will put a lot of fertilizer in, hoping it'll grow faster, bigger, so on. But don't do that. When the Lord plants you, He knows exactly where He wants you, and He knows what it takes to make you grow. And what happens? Whatsoever you doeth will prosper. Now there's a prosperity message for you. You didn't even have to put on TV to hear it.
Yeah, and it's not a name it and claim it one either.
No. And in things like that, real prosperity, first of all, is not money. Real prosperity is not possessions. Real prosperity is being in the will of God and letting Him do His perfect work.
Amen.
Verse 4, the ungodly are not so. Now that says a lot right there. The ungodly are not like that. The ungodly are not planted. They do not produce fruit. They do not prosper.
You know why, Michael? Because they are the Lord of their life.
Exactly.
But they can't be Lord because there's only one God.
Yeah.
And God created us. We're not sufficient to be Lord of our life.
Exactly. Going on, they are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Straw. They're like straw. In the Bible times, when they would harvest grain, they would go out in the field, they'd cut the grain, they'd let it dry, and then they used what they call a winnowing fork, a great big utensil with big prongs, and they would throw it all up in the air.
Like a big pitchfork?
Like a big pitchfork.
Okay.
They would throw it up in the air, and the seed, the grain that was heavy with the nutrients and the meat, they call it meat, the meat of the seed would fall to the ground, and that grassy stem, that chaff, that straw would blow away. God says, be like the tree that's planted by the rivers of water. Otherwise, you'll get blown around by every wind that comes along.
Because it didn't have any substance.
Exactly. It's not grounded. And like, I forget who it says in the New Testament, it says, you'll be blown around by every wind of doctrine. That's why we have so many weak Christians. They run around, listen to this preacher or that preacher and so on. You need to be like the people in Berea in the book of Acts. When Paul came to Berea, he preached to them, and they listened. And every night they got out their scriptures and they looked up to see if what Paul said was right and true. Verse 5, therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. The wicked will not survive judgment. There is a judgment coming. There's a judgment coming very soon, and you need to be prepared for it. Verse 6, for the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. God knows if you're righteous. He knows where you're going. He knows what's in your life, what's in your path ahead of you. But the ungodly will perish. And the Hebrew word for perish there means to wander off. Now, let's find a New Testament verse to go along with that. In Jude, Jude is only one chapter, and it's a book just before Revelation. Verse 13, it's talking about the unrighteous. It says, it's calling them raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. They wander off. And that's what's going to happen in the judgment. They will be cast into the lake of fire, and they will not be seen from or heard from anymore. That's not what you want, friend. Get yourself right with God, get grounded in His Word, and live for Him. And that is real prosperity.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, and we look forward to the next lesson.
Another great word from you, Michael, and I never get tired of listening to these teachings. And I do pray that you gain something out of it, friends. Until next time, um, goodbye.
Goodbye.